You were not born like this. You were not born unable to sit in silence. You were not born unable to delay gratification. You were not born anxious by default, reactive by default, empty by default. You were not born reaching for your phone the moment discomfort arrives. You were not born unable to focus for longer than 40 seconds without needing a reward. You were built that way. Every morning you wake up already behind, already overstimulated before you have spoken a single word, already emotionally reactive before a single thing has actually gone wrong, already craving distraction before you have given your mind one clear moment to tell you what it actually needs. This does not feel like weakness to you. It feels like normal. It feels like just the way things are. It feels like this is simply who you are. That feeling is the most successful part of the design. What is happening to you is not a personal failure. It is not a character flaw. It is not a reflection of your potential or your worth or your capacity for strength. It is a system, engineered with the same cold precision as any weapon ever built, targeting the specific psychological architecture that makes men capable of building, creating, leading, and resisting. Targeting it not to destroy it violently, but to quietly degrade it over years until the man inside you forgets it was ever there. They do not want you strong. A strong man is dangerous. A strong man builds things they cannot control. A strong man asks questions they cannot answer. A strong man walks away from systems designed to feed on his attention, his labor, his compliance, and his silence. So they made you weak instead. And today, you are going to understand exactly how they did it. Here is what you were told. Mental weakness is a personal problem. Some men are strong and some men are weak, and the difference is willpower. The strong man has it and the weak man does not. If you are struggling, it is because you are not trying hard enough. If you are distracted, it is because you lack discipline. If you are anxious and reactive and unable to think clearly under pressure, it is because something is wrong with you specifically. That is the lie. The philosophers understood this long before the science confirmed it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the ruling faculty, the part of a man that governs his mind and directs his actions, could be corrupted from the outside. That external conditions could degrade a man's capacity for sovereign thought if he allowed those conditions to colonize his inner world. He was not describing weakness as a fixed trait. He was describing it as a state that could be installed. Friedrich Nietzsche went further. He identified what he called the last man, the man who has been domesticated so completely that he no longer wants to overcome anything. The man who has traded the discomfort of growth for the comfort of managed stimulation. The man who blinks, who asks only for warmth and entertainment, who has been made so small that smallness feels natural to him. Nietzsche warned that this was not an accident of history. It was the direction that certain forces in society were deliberately pushing the human animal, not through violence, through comfort, through managed overstimulation. Through the systematic removal of every experience that builds psychological strength and the replacement of those experiences with pleasures that slowly hollow the man from the inside. He was describing your life, more than a century before the smartphone existed. The neuroscience is now unambiguous. The architecture of the modern environment has been optimized not for human flourishing, but for human compliance. And the primary target of that optimization is the male mind. To understand how male mental weakness was manufactured, you have to understand what mental strength actually requires to exist. Mental strength is not a feeling. It is not motivation. It is not the surge of confidence you feel after watching an inspiring video. It is a specific set of neurological capacities built through a specific set of experiences. It requires tolerating discomfort without fleeing it. It requires sustaining focus without constant reward. It requires sitting in silence long enough that your own mind becomes interesting to you. It requires facing resistance and moving through it rather than around it. Every single one of those requirements has been systematically eliminated from the modern male experience. Discomfort is medicated, entertained away, scrolled past. Focus is destroyed by notification systems designed by behavioral scientists to make sustained attention neurologically impossible for the average person. Silence has been replaced by a world that is never quiet, never still, never asking less of your nervous system than it can handle. Resistance has been smoothed away by systems of convenience that ensure no man ever has to encounter genuine friction long enough to build something real from the encounter. The result is a generation of men whose prefrontal cortex, the seat of long-term thinking, emotional regulation, strategic planning, and moral reasoning, has been functionally degraded not by injury, but by chronic understimulation of the capacities it needs to remain strong and chronic overstimulation of the systems that keep it weak. The Stoics called the prefrontal cortex the hegemonikon, the ruling part, the part of you that is capable of governing your entire inner world if it is developed and exercised and protected. They understood that the man whose hegemonikon is strong is the man who cannot be ruled by anyone else. He rules himself, and the man who rules himself cannot be exploited. That is exactly why it was targeted. They did not use one weapon, they used three, and they used them simultaneously, understanding all three as the beginning of the defense. The first weapon is chronic overstimulation. The human nervous system was built for a world of meaningful signal and natural silence, a world where stimulation arrived in proportion to reality, where the intensity of your inner experience matched the actual significance of what was happening around you. The modern information environment has destroyed that proportion entirely. Your nervous system now receives more stimulation in a single morning than your ancestors received in a month. And because the nervous system adapts to its environment, a mind that is always maximally stimulated loses its capacity to generate its own signal. It becomes dependent on external input to feel anything. Silence becomes unbearable. Stillness becomes threatening. The inner world, which is the only place real strength is built, becomes inaccessible. The second weapon is the removal of genuine challenge. Psychological strength is built through the same mechanism as physical strength. You encounter resistance, you push against it. The resistance causes a form of damage. The recovery from that damage builds capacity that did not exist before. Remove the resistance and the capacity is never built. The modern world has engineered the removal of genuine challenge from male life with extraordinary efficiency. Not all challenge, the performance of challenge, the appearance of difficulty. But genuine friction, the kind that actually builds the psychological architecture of a strong man, has been replaced by managed comfort at every turn. The third weapon is the corruption of identity. Marcus Aurelius wrote that a man becomes what he repeatedly tells himself he is. The Stoics understood identity not as something fixed and discovered, but as something actively constructed through thought, choice, and action. The modern environment constructs male identity for you before you have the chance to construct it yourself. It tells you what a man is, what a man wants, what a man is capable of, and the identity it constructs is the identity of a consumer, a passive receiver. A man whose inner life is managed and maintained by external systems rather than governed from within. The man who accepts that identity has already lost the war. The cost of manufactured mental weakness is not abstract. It is specific, it is measurable, and it compounds over time in every area of a man's life that actually matters. The man with a degraded ruling faculty cannot build wealth, not because he lacks intelligence, because wealth is built through the sustained, disciplined application of strategic thinking over long periods of time. Strategic thinking requires a prefrontal cortex that is not constantly hijacked by reactivity, distraction, and short-term stimulation seeking. The man whose mind has been degraded by the three weapons can see the path. He simply cannot stay on it long enough for the path to lead anywhere. The man with a degraded ruling faculty cannot build relationships of genuine depth, not because he lacks the capacity for connection, because genuine connection requires the ability to be present, to tolerate the discomfort of vulnerability, to stay in difficult emotional territory long enough for something real to emerge. The degraded mind flees discomfort automatically. It optimizes for surface stimulation over depth. The result is a man surrounded by people and genuinely known by none of them. And the man with a degraded ruling faculty cannot become who he is actually capable of being, not because his potential has been destroyed. It has not. It is still there, buried under years of managed weakness, waiting. The question is whether he will find it before the years run out. This is what is being taken from you. Not your time, not your money, your capacity, your potential. The version of yourself that would have existed if the weapons had not been used. Most men who encounter this truth try to respond to it with guilt. They look back at the years of distraction, the years of weakness, the years of living below their capacity, and they blame themselves for all of it. They take the manufactured weakness and add a layer of self-contempt on top of it. And then they wonder why the self-contempt does not produce the strength they are looking for. It does not produce strength because it is the wrong response. The right response is not guilt. The right response is clarity. The clarity of a man who finally understands what happened to him and why. The clarity of a man who can now see the weapons for what they are and choose his relationship to them consciously rather than being moved by them unconsciously. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the most psychologically free men in recorded history, taught that the first act of philosophy is the precise identification of what is up to us and what is not. The weakness that was installed in you, not up to you. It was done before you were old enough to consent to it or defend against it. What you do with the clarity you now have, entirely up to you, from this moment forward. You are not a weak man who needs to become strong. You are a strong man who has been temporarily living inside a structure built to contain him. The difference between those two identities is everything. The first man is working against his nature. The second man is simply removing what was placed on top of it. You are not fixing yourself. You are reclaiming yourself. The weapon is not a productivity system. The weapon is not a morning routine. The weapon is not another piece of content about discipline. The weapon is the deliberate reconstruction of the experiences that build the ruling faculty. The experiences the modern environment systematically removed. You must put them back. Weapon 1, voluntary discomfort. Marcus Aurelius practiced it daily. Seneca wrote about it as the single most important training a man could give himself. The practice of deliberately choosing discomfort in small daily doses. Cold, hunger, physical difficulty, silence, not because suffering is good, because the man who has repeatedly chosen discomfort voluntarily has proven to his own nervous system that discomfort is not a threat. It is simply a condition. And the man for whom discomfort is simply a condition cannot be controlled by the removal of comfort. That man is free. Weapon 2, protected silence. Every day a block of time in which no external input is permitted. No phone, no content, no other people's thoughts entering your mind, just you and the quality of your own thinking. This is not comfortable at first. The degraded mind will resist it violently. It will generate anxiety and boredom and the urgent feeling that something important is happening elsewhere that you are missing. That feeling is the withdrawal of a mind that has been made dependent. Push through it. On the other side is a mind that can hear itself again. Weapon 3, the single daily act of genuine difficulty. One thing every day that requires you to push past the point where the weak version of you would stop. One thing that generates real resistance and demands that you move through it rather than around it. It does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be real. The cumulative effect of one genuine act of difficulty per day over months and years is the reconstruction of a psychological architecture that the modern world spent years dismantling. Weapon 4, sovereign identity construction. Stop allowing external systems to tell you who you are. Start telling yourself. Every morning before the world has accessed your nervous system, before the phone, before the feed, before the noise, you sit with the question of who you are choosing to be today. Not who you were yesterday. Not who the algorithm has decided you are based on your past behavior. Who you are choosing to be. The man who asks that question daily and answers it deliberately is building an identity that no external system can manufacture for him. That man is the most dangerous thing the architects of weakness ever created. A man who knows exactly who he is. There is a version of you that the system never reached. He wakes in the silence before the world begins, and he sits with his own mind long enough that it tells him what it actually thinks. Not what it was fed. Not what the architects of weakness planted in it during the years of managed distraction. What it actually thinks. What it actually wants. What it is actually capable of. He encounters discomfort, and he does not flee it. He encounters resistance, and he does not root around it. He encounters silence and he does not fill it. He has rebuilt the ruling faculty piece by piece through the daily practice of choosing difficulty, protecting stillness, and governing his own identity from the inside rather than receiving it from the outside. His mind is not fragmented, it is whole, and a whole mind applied with sovereign focus over months and years produces outcomes that the weakened man cannot imagine, not because he is a different species, because he is the same man who refused to stay inside the structure built to contain him. He is not the man they made, he is the man he built. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you could leave life right now, and your only question should be whether you spent it as a free man or as a managed one. The years you lived inside the manufactured weakness are gone. They cannot be recovered. That is not a reason for grief. That is information, the most useful information you have ever received, because now you know what was done and why. And the man who knows what was done to him and why is no longer the man it was done to. He is the man who was targeted and survived the targeting and came out the other side understanding exactly what he is dealing with. You have a number of mornings remaining that you cannot know. A number of days in which the ruling faculty can be rebuilt if you choose to rebuild it. A number of opportunities to become the man that the architects of weakness spent years and billions of dollars trying to prevent you from becoming. The clock is not cruel, it is honest, and it is moving. What was laid out today? The three weapons used against your mind, the neuroscience of how the ruling faculty is degraded, the Stoic philosophy of reconstructing it, the identity shift from broken to targeted, the four weapons of reclamation. This is the map, the public layer. The practice, the specific daily protocols for rebuilding the ruling faculty from the ground up, the deeper philosophical frameworks, the unfiltered work that no algorithm will ever recommend to you because it is not built for your compliance. It is built for your liberation. That lives behind the join button. Most will not, that is the point. If you are not subscribed, do it now, not as a favor to this channel, as the first act of the man you are choosing to become. Choose where your attention goes next. Choose it consciously. Make it count.